Imagine starting your day by staring at a wall of 23 different options for toothpaste. Meanwhile, your phone is buzzing, your smartwatch is flashing a reminder that you're already behind schedule, and your brain is processing thousands of data points before you've even had a cup of coffee. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. Modern society expects you to choose absolutely everything: your career path, your investment strategy, your streaming service, your personal brand. We built a world that promises ultimate freedom and ultimate comfort, but the result is an exhausted population. For almost all of human history, the brain didn't navigate these open-ended choices. It operated within strict, inescapable boundaries, and evidence suggests our minds were built to thrive in that smaller world. To understand why, we are going to send our overwhelmed friend back in time. We're going to climb the historical hierarchy of power, from the bottom rungs of society all the way to absolute rulership, to see how strict routines anchored our ancestors, regardless of their social class. Our journey starts here, a small English village sometime during the 13th century. If you lived in that thatched cottage, your life came with a very short instruction manual. You didn't choose your career, your clothes, or your daily schedule. Instead, nature acted as your manager. The sun decided when your workday began. The changing seasons dictated exactly what your priorities were. When daylight vanished, your shift was over. You couldn't continue working by candlelight even if you wanted to. Your social world was equally rigid. You lived in a community of perhaps 100 people. You saw the same faces every single day. If your roof collapsed or your crops failed, your neighbors stepped in. Survival depended entirely on cooperation, which removed the modern burden of complete, isolating independence. Life was undeniably difficult. A failed crop meant hunger. A fever meant a church bell ringing for a funeral. But these were visible, tangible threats you could touch. You weren't lying awake worrying about a stock market on another continent, or an email marked urgent sent at 9:30 on a Friday night. This cyclical calendar illustrates how routine provided mental stability. It maps out the repetitive seasonal tasks: planting in spring, harvesting in autumn, repairing tools in winter. Your brain spends less energy wondering what comes next when the future feels entirely predictable. A baker's son became a baker. A farmer's daughter learned to spin wool. While this sounds restrictive, it meant waking up every day already knowing exactly who you were. You didn't spend years wondering if your labor reflected your authentic self. You were too busy keeping the chickens out of the seed. You might assume that escaping the village meant finding freedom. So let's move up the economic ladder to the traveling merchants of the Silk Road. Mobility, wealth, open horizons. Surely this was a relaxed lifestyle. Not exactly. A caravan was a militaristic operation. Long before the first rays of sunlight hit the Asian steppes, the entire camp was awake. Survival required absolute adherence to the caravan master's schedule, because every minute spent sleeping after dawn meant another minute walking under a lethal afternoon sun. Before taking a single step, travelers executed a highly engineered procedure to perfectly balance cargo on extremely stubborn animals. A damaged crate or an uneven load could cost a merchant a year's profit. There was zero room for flexibility. Even breakfast was purely functional. Nobody debated the menu. You tore off pieces of flatbread prepared weeks earlier, maybe washed down with fermented camel's milk, and ate as quickly as possible. Woven right into this rapid morning march were strict spiritual habits. Muslim merchants prayed toward Mecca. Buddhist monks recited sacred verses. Chinese traders burned fragrant incense. They executed these rituals simultaneously, grounding themselves before hitting the road. Wealth and travel did not buy these merchants freedom from routine. They simply traded the natural constraints of an English village for the merciless survival rules of the desert. Let's step away from the harsh desert and climb even higher, straight into the aristocratic sphere of a medieval castle. Proximity to immense wealth and nobility must finally equal a relaxed lifestyle, right? Keep dreaming. A castle was not a resort. It was a dense economic and military machine that required hundreds of people to maintain, operating under a relentless, unbending schedule. Before the sun even rose, the night guard had to be formally changed at the gatehouse. Servants raced through freezing corridors, carrying glowing coals to ignite massive stone hearths. Kitchen staff began prepping functional breakfasts of coarse bread and porridge for over 100 hungry laborers. And the lord and lady at the top of this hierarchy? Their days were bound by strictly scheduled duties, managing massive estate finances, overseeing agricultural production in the surrounding villages, and administering local justice. Climbing the social ladder didn't eliminate daily constraints. It merely increased the sheer scale of a person's inescapable responsibilities. So we reached the absolute peak of human power, the court of Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. Ruling millions of people across the European continent, he possessed ultimate political freedom. Surely here, at the top, we find unconstrained indulgence. Napoleon actually despised lingering over food. Despite having access to the finest French chefs in existence, he viewed eating as a frustrating obstacle to his actual work. He frequently inhaled his entire dinner in under 10 minutes, often standing up and leaving before his guests had even unfolded their napkins. His most famous dish, chicken merengue, perfectly captures this attitude. Invented on the fly by his chef after the Battle of Marengo, it was a quick, improvised sauté of chicken, tomatoes, garlic, and eggs. It symbolized a rushed, battlefield-oriented diet that prioritized military speed over culinary pleasure. Even during these lightning-fast meals, he was constantly multitasking. Between mouthfuls of soup, he dictated military orders to exhausted secretaries and read dispatches from distant provinces, forcing everyone around him to scramble just to keep up. Even with the wealth of an empire at his fingertips, Napoleon's day was a relentless, functional march. The modern concept of leisure time simply did not exist for him. We bring our traveler back to the modern grocery aisle. Exhausted from marching across history, they aren't scanning the shelves for the perfect option anymore. Now, let's be clear. We should absolutely not romanticize the past. We want to keep our antibiotics, our indoor plumbing, our vaccines, and our clean drinking water. But we have to recognize a crucial trade-off. Modern technology successfully solved our ancestors' physical problems, but in doing so, it erased the natural boundaries that kept their focus narrow and their days predictable. You don't need to move into a thatched cottage to apply these lessons. You can voluntarily manufacture your own boundaries. Deliberately limit your daily consumer choices. Embrace routines that put your schedule on autopilot. And when the sun goes down, enforce a hard boundary between work and rest. True psychological freedom in the modern world isn't found by chasing endless options. It is found by voluntarily embracing the predictable constraints our ancestors had forced on them by nature.